That's another addictive thing, like being a motorcycle, just the hum of the motor and just the raw power. And it's been a part of my life. I came up from a broken home. Mom left when I was 2 years old. Young father, drugs, alcohol, partying, basically is what I knew as a young child. I remember being 3 years old and my dad rolled a motorcycle up 3 flights of stairs into our apartment to take it apart and rebuild it and paint it. And that was our transportation. He'd sit me on the tank and he'd drive around until I fell asleep and he'd put me to bed. So it started at a real young age for me. Grew up and kind of followed that footstep, Just partying, it just seemed like natural in life, seeing a lot of crazy things, and I wasn't fazed by it. So when I got married and then once we had a kid, I felt like that's what life is supposed to be like. Like it's supposed to be marriage, and this is what you do. I accepted what the responsibilities I had in front of me. Like my dad might have not been the greatest of dads at a young point in my life, but he taught me how to provide as best you can. So I had those skills and I knew that this was my time. And I took it full force, but I tried to, it's kind of like living a double life, like you want to be responsible, but you don't want to do too much adulting, So it did, it really jacked up my freedom. So I eventually bought another motorcycle when Luke was 1. Yeah, and that was the best thing for me in my life at that point, was to be able to just go. I didn't really have a group of guys I hung out with. It was just some guys I rode with, but it was the same guys I smoked dope with. So we'd get together, get high, and maybe we'd go ride. Wheelies on the highway, high speeds down, slow turning roads. So in that point in life, I didn't even think about family, when I was on 2 wheels. I didn't think about, I distanced myself from that. That was my escape. That led to my first big motorcycle crash. This was the big moment in my life where God stepped in. This is how I know that he loved me. Because before that point, I should have been dead. Before even meeting my first wife, I should have been dead. Because the maybe 3 or 4 times I overdosed. And there wasn't nobody there to save me, but I was alive when I woke up. But I went riding one day, one of those escapes with a couple buddies, and we maybe made it 10 minutes into a ride. And we were doing maybe 80, 90, 100 miles an hour on a 45 sport bikes, so just wide open. I flipped and landed on my head. I rolled probably, 50, 100 feet, and then stood up off the ground. And the first thing I said was, "Look at my bike." My bike had been tossed maybe 20 feet in the air going into oncoming traffic. It was folded in half. Now I wasn't scratched. And then that search began. At the same time, I'd be at home at night, hammered drunk, and just outside. I was in the country. I lived in the country, so I was looking at the stars, just God, what do you want me to do? I don't know where I'm supposed to be or who I'm supposed to be. And then I was looking for little churches to go to. I was I need to go to a church. I need to go to a church. So at that point in my life, my wife and I, once I was riding again in the club lifestyle, we weren't together. We got divorced, and I was looking for another lady friend in my life. You're lonely. You get lonely. I did some online dating and ended up dating a couple girls. I went on a couple dates from girls from Craigslist. And funny story is that's where I met my now wife, Trish. Come on, who does that? And instantly we connected, and she was a Christian. And I'd been searching for, after my wreck and the divorce, I'd been searching for God. I'd been talking to him, but I never really knew him. So when I met Trish, I was serving jail time too, because I got a DUI, so I had to go to jail. So I'd go into jail real early because I was dating this pretty girl, and I'd get out real early on Sunday morning, and I'd jump on my bike and I'd go meet her at church, and I'd go to church with her. So eventually Trish took me in with her parents to the sanctuary service. Old people were in the sanctuary service, and I never felt so welcome before in my life. These little old ladies come up to a guy that's got tattoos and just doesn't look like he belongs, and they like give you a hug and shake your hand. Like for me, feeling that welcome where I'm so out of place. And I call them the blue hairs, but those are my people, 70 and older. Those are my people. And I started going. I started hanging out with guys from church. Not really hanging out with them. I didn't really like people so much. I was kind of like an anti-people person. I enjoyed camping. And so it's a men's camp and getaway. And my wife's like, she's like, you ought to go. I'm like, I'm working 2 jobs at this point, trying to support it. It's like, I'm working 7 days a week. I was like, all right, I'll take some time and I'll go. And I go and I drink a deuce and I smoke a joint before I get there. Cause I'm like, if I'm gonna go, I'm gonna have fun. And I went down there and it was pouring down raining, and I had set my tent up, and we're all getting ready to eat. And I'm kind of loaded at this point, and I'm talking to these guys in line. I look over and this wind's coming up this hill where we're staying at. And I'm like, this tent's folded in half. And I'm like, man, that dude's tent's folded in half. And I look around like, that's my tent. Like it's folded down and taking water. It's this crazy, so I got this crazy story, and we're all talking about like, your tent was, folded and full of water. And the next day, I'm sober and stuff. And I met this guy named David Brown, and I met a guy named John Barber. And we're fishing, we're talking, and he's like, oh, you got a little boy. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you ought to become a Royal Ranger commander. Royal Rangers is basically like Boy Scouts, but better. It's faith-based, and we do all the cool stuff, but we talk God and Jesus. And I was like, oh, that sounds great for my kid, but that's not for me, And right around that very same time in my life, I got asked to do kids church, which means like teach Bible stories to kindergartners of all people, And I'm like, what do you guys see in me? And I was like, okay, I need to serve somewhere in church because that's what they say you ought to do. It's a part of being in church. You got to serve somewhere. I'd never be around the kids hungover. That was the first step. Like I wouldn't drink the night before because I was around kids. So I'm serving there a little bit. I do my first vacation Bible school. It's the last night of vacation Bible school. I ended up having an altercation with somebody on the road in a road rage incident. And long story short, I ended up having to serve jail time again in life, the shame. So I got out of jail after thinking of, this isn't me. This isn't who I'm supposed to be. I say I believe, but I'm in here having the same story as these guys that don't believe, the same addiction stories, the same DUI stories, I have the same story, but that's not who I am. That's not who I want to be. It was that moment that I realized that I am now a hypocrite. I am now exactly why I didn't want to walk into a church building. And I remember that night, and I'm sitting on the back porch, and I'm smoking a cigarette, and I remember being in jail and telling myself that this isn't who I am or who I'm supposed to be. And I prayed about it. I asked God just to take this from me, like take this addiction from me. Take, the want to drink, the want to smoke weed, the want to take pills, take it from me. And he just took it from me. Like God took the addiction from me. Like I asked him, like this is the prayer that people say they don't hear answered prayers, and this is like truthfully an answered prayer. The battle, the struggle, man, he took it. He took it and squished it. And then the whole Royal Ranger thing came back around. My son was the age to be a Royal Ranger, and those guys were like really cool people. And they're like, you ought to get a commander shirt. The commander's a leader in the Royal Rangers, and I'm like, ain't me, man. Like I already do Sundays, I need Wednesdays too. And my wife Trish said, if you're going to be teaching those Rangers, you better get ready with the Bible because they're going to know it, and you need to be able to give them the answers. Right? I'm like, holy crap. I ended up using that time like to get closer. God's given me the whole Royal Ranger thing, leading in there. I'm able to go in there and be able to be a solid Christian man for these boys. Some of them don't have dads. You know, some of them got rough family lives even though we can't see it. I can tell them about my addictions, not in detail, but I can tell them about how I screwed up and show them how I'm changed and show them how I walk. And these boys get us so on fire. They're like, I just want to go talk about Jesus. You know, like it hypes me up to see them excited, and then we're all excited, just kind of bouncing around. And then he's taken me, you know, it allowed me to be in places to explain stuff to people about addiction and stuff. So I was in a motorcycle club, so I got that aspect of my life and background and experience. So he opened up a door for me to join the motorcycle ministry, which is Bikers for Christ. You can show God's kindness to somebody even if they feel like they don't deserve it. You know, it's powerful. You know, I'm able to go out on my motorcycle and still be Tony the biker, the dad, the Royal Ranger commander, and look legit and be legit and say who I am. You know, like I always say this saying, like I don't want to die and have the pastor lie at my funeral. Right? I don't want to live my life that way. You know, I want to be who I say I am and live it the best I can. Saved. Like I know in my heart that this place is temporary. Like I know that this place isn't what would, you know, it's a drop in the bucket compared to eternity. And I know one day that I'm gonna be standing next to the King, riding my Harley on the golden streets of heaven, you know? And that brings joy. It brings joy that I can tell my kids that they can live that way. I'm Tony Nieves. I was chasing freedom, and I found it in Christ.